my boy Ryan. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Only met you one time, I feel like, in person, right?
Yep.
Back at like a state party.
Yep.
Because that's where you went, right?
Yep, that's where I went. You came over and you went to Taco Bell and ended up buying us tacos.
That seems like it's a common story with me. I always end up, was it drunk?
You might have been.
Okay.
You also stole someone's football.
I do remember that because wasn't it a Michigan State week?
Yep.
Yeah, and then I was in Lansing.
Yeah, you were in Lansing.
So I had to take the fucking people's football.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Michigan colors because March Madness is coming on. So you a sports fan at all?
Yeah, I'm Michigan State.
Well, yeah, for all sports?
Yeah, for all sports. I'm pretty much football and basketball. Those are the two I pay attention to.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really even pay attention to. I'll pay attention to football, but if March Madness is on, I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Any other time, don't really care.
Yeah.
But you guys just made it under the wire, didn't you? You made it in.
Yeah, barely. Well, we got a play-in game, so I don't even know if that counts as being in yet.
Do you play? Doesn't it start Thursday?
Yeah, we play Thursday to get into the field of 64.
Okay.
So there's like 68 teams, and there's 4 playing games.
Okay. Well, I think you guys have been on like a little hot streak, so.
Yeah. Well, we lost to Maryland twice.
Well, fuck Maryland.
So.
Fuck Maryland. We'll see how. We want you to get in so we can beat you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't speak too much about basketball just because I don't know much about it, so I'd sound like an idiot. But anyway, before we get started, just to address the obvious, yes, I moved, got a new studio. I was just telling Ryan, it's really fucking jank and ghetto right now, so expect improvements as we go on. Anyway, Ryan, one thing I want to just kick this off with because I think it's insane. Again, I don't know you very well, but you were in school. From the conversation we had when I was at state, I don't think, being in the military ever came up. Was that always, because you're correct me if I'm wrong, you're trained to become a SEAL, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Were you in school because of that, or did something change?
Something changed, definitely. So it was kind of weird because in high school I kind of like saw the military and I was kind of interested in it a little bit, but all my friends were going to college. Mm-hmm. So the people that I saw going into the military weren't really my friends, and I wasn't close with those people, so I kind of like college was my path. Like all my friends were going to college, my parents wanted me to go to college, so I was going to college. My freshman year of college, I actually started a business. I started a painting company to pay for college, and then I kind of went the entrepreneurial route through college. But one day, my junior year, I was watching YouTube before bed like I always do, and I saw this video of the Navy SEALs. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. So I started doing like research, looking more into it, and I actually had a cousin that tried out for the SEALs probably 15 years ago. So I contacted him, talked to him about it, and I started looking up like what is it going to take to actually become a SEAL, and it stuck out to me, and it was something that I wanted to pursue.
Did your cousin, did he ever like get into being a SEAL? Or?
No, he didn't. So SEALs, there's this training process called BUDS. It's a 6-month program that basically weeds out the weak people, and they're not weak people that they weed out, but there's like a 90% attrition rate. So 10% of the people who try out actually make it through.
So basically it's not easy to make it through.
It's not easy, no.
Okay.
So a quick story to tell. I'm training in Miami right now with this group. It's called the Navy Warrior Challenge Program. So it's a bunch of people looking to go into the Special Forces in the Navy. So we have a bunch of people going for SEAL, EOD, Air Rescue, and we have a team leader who basically runs the group and makes sure everybody's like on time, things like that. So previously there was a team leader there who was just this stud of an athlete. He was there all through high school. He couldn't join yet because he wasn't 18, but he was there training the whole time. Great kid. Everybody thought he was going to make it, and he gets to BUDS training week, day 3, he quits.
Really?
Yeah, like everybody was like, this is the guy that's going to become the SEAL out of all of us. And 3 days in, he just...
Did we hear from him?
Yeah, he quit because he couldn't breathe under the boats is basically what he said.
Well, I'm going to get into asking you about some of the training things because I can just imagine it's fucking insane. But just to go back, before all that, what were you studying in college?
So I was studying finance, and my original plan was to go work on Wall Street. I wanted to do some like investment banking and stock trading and things like that. But then I got into entrepreneurship, running my own painting company, trying to pay for college. And then during college, there was a point where I was thinking about dropping out. I'm like, I don't really want to do this whole Wall Street thing anymore. I just want to run my own business. I have experience doing it. What's the point of going to college? What am I getting out of this?
Mm-hmm.
My parents weren't a big fan of me dropping out, so I stayed in.
So you graduated with finance?
Yep, so I graduated with finance and then a minor in entrepreneurship.
Okay. So you said you started your painting business to pay for school freshman year?
Correct.
Was that in East Lansing or was that back at home?
So it was back at home. It was actually with the College Works program.
Okay.
So they recruit a bunch of college kids, and everybody thinks it's like this big pyramid scheme, and they kind of had like the bad reputation, but it was actually like a great program because they taught you a lot, and it was really hard work. You think running a business is going to be easy until you actually have to go out and do it, and knocking on people's doors in the middle of winter trying to get them to get a paint job is not easy. And then hiring workers with no experience and trying to train them, and then somebody spills a gallon of paint on somebody's roof, and you're like, what do we do now? So it was a rough experience, but I actually learned a lot from it, and it really helped me grow.
And so you said not social works. What was the name of the group that helped you get started?
College Works Painting.
College Work. Oh, so that's so it's like basically was it like a training group that kind of lets you become your own?
So they're a nationwide painting company that basically hires college interns every year and teaches them how to run their own business.
Oh, okay. All centered around painting?
All centered around painting.
Okay. Painting houses?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I can't speak to it because I don't own my own business, but starting a business in general, I can imagine being difficult, but also having to deal with the probably prejudice, preconceived of, oh, this guy's young, what the fuck does he know? Also trying to get employees, like, why would I go work for you? You're still in school.
Yeah, it definitely was hard. One of the things was, since it's such a big company, your prices are obviously higher than like the small guys on the block. So we had high prices. I was a kid, and it was my first time doing it. So people look at you like, how is this kid going to do a good job when his prices are higher than somebody who's been doing it for 20 years and has experience?
So what kind of things did you learn from that?
You have to be good at sales. I learned a lot about like building rapport with people because it's hard to book work if people don't trust you.
Yeah.
So building rapport and building relationships with people. And then I think the biggest thing I learned was just like doing a good job and actually caring about your clients because I saw people who didn't care about their clients and kind of like the issues that they dealt with. Versus the people like myself who actually really cared about the job and quality of the work that I was providing.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing in really any field. Right? You see people who, just for example, customer service, being on the customer service side and also being on the customer side, it's a fucking night and day difference of people who give a shit and people who are literally just there because they need a job.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like an ethical problem that I had too. Is like I saw these people who were cutting corners and maybe not doing as good of a job, and they cover up their mistakes or just like half-ass something.
Yeah.
So I kind of had like an ethical problem with some people in the organization doing things like that, but I always just like kind of focused on myself and did the best job that I could.
So did you have to address those, or like were you in a position where you didn't really have to say, you could just kind of stay in your lane and do that?
I just stayed in my lane and did that.
But you manage people, right?
Yeah, so I had my own employees that were basically doing a lot of the painting and things like that. So over the course of one summer, I had 13 people working for me.
Damn.
So.
And were they all good workers, or?
No. The reason I had 13 was because I fired 11 of them.
Jesus.
So
you run with a crew of 3 usually?
So I typically have a crew of 2 people, and I'd run one crew at a time. When it picked up during the summer, I had 2 crews going. But it was hard because I hired people that were inexperienced, so I had to teach them everything from scratch. And over the past couple of years of running a business, I learned it's better to hire good people that you have to train as opposed to hiring people with experience that are not good workers.
Yeah.
because like I noticed my best workers were people who were good kids, hard-working people that I could teach how to do things, and they were motivated to do well. But then I've also hired people that had more experience than I did, but they weren't hardworking people, and they'd always cut corners and things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because so I'm still in corporate America.
Yeah.
You know, you did your own business and now you're just going for the seals. I'm in corporate America, so I've dealt with people who probably got hired in because they had good experience but fucking suck to work with because they don't give a shit and they're just not friendly and you don't want to work with that. So I would agree with you. Whether it's in like a sports mentality, work mentality, I think you look for, well, at least for me, let me know if you agree with this, look for somebody with like certain characteristics and how they present themselves despite what they know. And if they have those characteristics that you're trying to identify, then fucking you can teach them, and they'll usually be your best employee.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually kind of had this mentor who was helping me a little bit with stuff, and he drew this chart for me. It was like motivation, skill, or high motivation, high skill, low motivation, low skill. And if they're high motivation, high skilled workers, you keep them or you promote them up to the next level. If they're high skill but no motivation, you either learn how to motivate them or you get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
High motivation people with low skill, you train them, and then hopefully they become high motivation people with high skill, and then you can promote them. But if they have low motivation and low skill, then you just get rid of them as well.
Yeah, and that's like one of those like cross charts, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like high potential, low potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I've seen that in different variations, and fucking amen to that because honestly, I'd rather deal with, like you said, I'd rather deal with somebody who knows jack fucking shit about whatever this is, but they're likable, than somebody who just, knows a lot, but, knows that they know a lot, and don't give a shit, clock out exactly at the time because time's up, don't go the extra mile to help out, and don't show any type of, like, emotion when working.
Yeah. I think some problem that the guys with experience have is teachability or learnability. Is like they don't like being told that they're wrong, or they've always done it their way. So when you propose something different, they're like, I do it like this, I'm not changing. So that's like a very good skill that like I look for if I want to hire somebody, and I try to act like I'm somebody who wants to learn when people are trying to teach me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even not in the job, like and just like if we were hanging out in person, don't act like you know everything. Even if you do, just fucking take a step back.
Yeah.
I have that problem too, where it's like, dude, I've done this so many times. Just I got this. Like let me be. But I was just actually in a competition for work, and like it's an innovation competition, right? So you're supposed to think creatively, and they put you with different people from different backgrounds, and without like going too much into detail, there was somebody who just, oh, we can't do that. It's not feasible. It doesn't work. We've been doing this for years. This is going to work. It's like, this is an innovation. This is literally they call this an innovation competition. Yeah. Why are you still putting your mindset on what has worked and not what could be better?
Yeah.
It's so fucking frustrating. So I hate, but it's difficult because if something has worked so many times, how do you explain to that person, well, it could be better?
Yeah.
So how did you, if you ever experienced somebody saying, oh, I got this, how did you experience, like, how did you go about saying, no, this could be better?
Well, a part of like being leadership is getting other people to buy into things. Mm-hmm. So sometimes like the best things to do are make them think like it's their idea.
Yeah.
So you kind of like push something forward or kind of talk them into making it their own idea, because people are more motivated when they're doing their idea as opposed to your idea. So that's kind of something I learned like the hard way, is not always telling people how to do things specifically, but kind of letting them run with their ideas or influencing their plan, so that they still do what I want them to do, but they do it in their own way so that they buy in more.
Yeah, that's a tough skill to have. Yeah. Is there like certain, and I know without going into like a specific example, I don't know if you can answer this, but is there certain type of questions or like probes you kind of give to like make it seem like it's their idea, even if it's really yours?
I guess I kind of ask them questions like, how would you recommend going about this project? And kind of get their feedback, basically have them tell me their plan and maybe give them suggestions to modify their plan a little bit. But in the end, it's still their plan, even though you make some changes to it.
Yeah, and sometimes speaking out loud too, they might they might say something, and then as they say it out loud, kind of walk back based on like hearing it and seeing your reaction maybe. So even though they presented the idea, saying it out loud, they're like, maybe that's not so great. And then they'll maybe just ask you, for example, what would you pull into this? So then it's like you said, it's a group effort, but they make it feel like they projected it first. It's interesting that you said that because I've read a couple things on leadership, and I don't know if I'm a good one or not, but that's something I've seen in pretty much all the different books I've read is something along those lines of spinning it to make it seem like it's their idea, even if it's yours, which is fucking hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, even if your idea is just as good as theirs, like sometimes it's better just to let them do their own thing because it helps motivate them.
Yeah. So what would you say to do in like a one-off competition? Like it has to be somebody's idea, and the wrong idea could get you cut from this competition, and you think yours is right, and you think yours is way fucking wrong. What are you supposed to do?
I don't know. That's like a hard situation. I guess everybody always says like compromise, and you can do some compromising. But if you're the boss, you can just take charge, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. If you're the boss, you kind of fucking get the last say. But if it's just like a fucking everyone's equal in this scenario, it's hard because, like you said, you want to compromise, but it's at the same time, it's like I think my idea is better. So it's really hard to fucking separate. It's really hard to separate your emotion from your idea that you put so much effort into, and just letting it go. I know that personally, but I think it's valuable if you can do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, I really want to talk about this chasing to become a SEAL because, like I said, I can imagine it be fucking really difficult. I've seen several like TV shows about like SEAL training or Marine training, and just some of it just seems just what's the word I'm looking for? Torturous almost.
Yeah.
Like it looks like fucking insane. So let me go back. You said that you were just watching a YouTube video one day and it just appealed to you?
Yeah, so I was actually watching a YouTube video and it was basically just talking about some missions that they go on and things like that. I'm like, oh, this is like pretty interesting. And then I started looking at the training program that they do, and it's called Bud's Training, and they have this thing called Hell Week. Guys are running with boats on their head. They're up for, they start Sunday night and they go through Friday morning, and they get like 4 hours of sleep total that week. Like they're up the whole time, running, exercising.
Can't that kill a person?
There have been people dying trying to get in.
So, it's insane.
Yeah.
So you saw this and were like, oh, that looks fun.
Pretty much.
So
I saw the. So it kind of like there were like two big prongs. I first saw like the missions and stuff that they were going on, and I'm like, that looks sweet. I also heard about them taking out Osama bin Laden too.
Yeah.
That was like kind of when they came to the big spotlight. But so I saw that, and then I saw the training, and I saw what people were going through, and I'm like, I think I could do that. So
that either takes a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
Or so before this, were you always were you into sports at all?
Yeah. So I played football, basketball, rugby in high school, and now I kind of do some MMA stuff. I do Jujitsu and Kickboxing.
Okay, which is another fucking. You gotta have some sort of mentality, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So working out and exerting yourself physically was never really anything like new to you.
No, but it is difficult for me to work out when I don't have a purpose. I'm not somebody that'll go to the gym and just lift to like get bigger or look better. I need something to motivate me. I need to be like chasing after something, and that's kind of like how I am in general with everything. Is like I need a purpose. I can't just like go through the flow of life without like chasing after something.
So did you lose that purpose in finance and in entrepreneurship, or did you just see something more exciting?
I saw something more exciting, and I knew that I only had one shot at the SEALs. With entrepreneurship, I have my whole life to do that. I already started my own business. It was successful. If I wanted to become a SEAL, now is the time to do it, because otherwise I'm going to get too old, too slow, too fat.
Yeah.
So now is the time to do it.
And just so I'm clear, because I'm not super familiar with like how the military is set up, you can be in the Navy, and it's not super difficult to get into the Navy, but to be a SEAL, which is a part of the Navy, it's like super fucking crazy to become one.
Correct.
Right? Can you get, like, if I was in the Navy now as like, would it be like an officer, or what's
So there's two paths inside the Navy. There's the enlisted path, which would be kind of like a worker in a factory, the guy that's building the cars and things like that. And then there's like the officer pathway. In order to do that, you have to have a college degree, but then that's more like managerial roles, like being the accountant of a firm. So it's basically like the blue collars versus the white collar worker.
So this might sound like another dumb question. So do any of those blue collar, white collar Navy officers, do they ever go on like to battle? Like, do they ever fight?
Yeah, so the officers fight in the SEAL programs. They typically only go on like 2 or 3 tours, like combat tours, before they're outranked. They'll rank up too quickly, and then they're basically planning missions and things like that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, and then the third option into the Navy is through the SEAL program or through their SUD. Is it SUDS? Buds. Yeah,
basic underwater demolition SEAL.
Okay, and is that something like, I know you said you're a part of a group now. Is that something that the Navy sponsors, or did you have to seek that out yourself? And like right now, you're not associated with the Navy at all.
So I'm going as an officer right now because I have my college degree. So I had to submit my application this past February for the SEAL officer program. So right now I'm training with a group in Miami, and it's actually a Navy group. It's basically for enlisted guys who are looking to go into the special operations. So it is the Navy. The Navy pays for it.
Okay.
But I don't get paid or anything to do it. I'm just a civilian that's going to these trainings. So a lot of people are going there. They already received their contract and are waiting to go to boot camp.
Okay. So, all right. So I know this might be a little out of order, but just so I can understand your mind of thinking. So when you decide, so after you watch this YouTube video and you're like, okay, that looks pretty cool. I'm guessing you probably did some more research, saw some other stuff. What was that final trigger of like, all right, I want to do that for sure?
I don't know what the final trigger was, but it was definitely like slow progression, and I did a ton of research. I talked to my cousin, I talked to other people in the Navy, because I wanted to understand what my life would be like going in and realizing the sacrifices that I'd actually be forced to make, the not being home for your family, things like that. So there was really no like final trigger. It was just kind of, this is what I'm interested in doing. Do I think it's possible? Yes. How do I get from where I'm at now to a level where I'll be competitive? Was kind of what I went through.
So once you decided in your head, okay, I'm going to do this, did you have to like seek out somebody? There's like an online program thing, or did you have to seek out like a contact within this program to be a part of it?
So I went to the regular Navy recruiter, and I walked in and I said, hey, I'm interested in like becoming a SEAL. What do I need to do? And the recruiter just like looked at me and just started laughing. He's like, everybody comes in here wanting to be a SEAL. What other programs are you interested in? I'm like, I'm not interested in anything else. I want to be a SEAL. And he's like, all right. And then I did some like testing, some mental testing. And they're like, oh, you scored really good on this mental aptitude test. How about you go in the nuclear submarine program? I'm like, I'm not interested. I want to be a SEAL. And then it turns out that was only the enlisted recruiter. So I actually talked to an officer recruiter after that. And then I ended up going through the officer program. So in my packet, I had to submit like physical testing scores, my mental aptitude tests, my my college grades, reference letters, things like that.
Did you have to study? So you said you had to provide like physical tests and aptitude tests and whatnot. Did you have to study for those tests? Or just here's how I am as is?
Well, I read that before you go to the recruiter, you should be able to pass your physical test. So I prepared for it. I was doing push-ups, I was doing sit-ups, I was doing pull-ups, things like that.
What's the physical test?
It's a 500-yard swim.
Lost me already.
Timed.
Can't swim.
Yeah, well, I couldn't either, but I decided I wanted to be a SEAL. So I'm like, I need to learn how to swim.
So why did you pick SEAL instead of like Marine or Army, knowing that you can't swim very well?
Because I knew I wanted to be a SEAL, and I knew I was not going to let my ability not to swim hinder me. I knew it was just like another obstacle. So I'd always like swam in my grandparents' pool as a kid, which is just like a little in-ground pool. But I went to the gym at Michigan State and went into their pool, and I tried swimming laps, and I went down and back in the pool. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Yeah, I was gassed. So it was actually I'll explain the test real quick. So it's the 500-yard swim. Right after, it's how many push-ups you can do in 2 minutes, how many sit-ups you can do in 2 minutes, how many pull-ups you can do in 2 minutes.
All in a row?
All in a row.
And so it's not a number specifically, it's how fast you can do it?
So yeah, you have 2 minutes to see how many you can do.
Does form matter?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're doing it wrong, they'll basically just stop you right there and say, you're done. So if you start doing bad push-ups after 30 push-ups, you're done at 30.
And so you said it's 500 meters swimming?
Yeah, 500 yards swimming.
500 yards, followed right when you got out of the pool.
So you have a 10-minute break.
Okay.
And then push-ups in 2 minutes, sit-ups in 2 minutes, pull-ups in 2 minutes. Then you get another 10-minute break, and then it's a 1.5 mile run.
Okay. Jesus. I mean, the swim sounds like definitely the hardest part. But I guess I would have to know what what a normal person tests in push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups.
Yeah.
And then is the run time? Is there certain
So there's
qualifications?
there's auto qualification scores for the enlisted guys. If you hit these numbers, they will give you a contract to go to Buds. So for the swim, it's 9 minutes and 30 seconds, and then you have to do 75 push-ups, 75 sit-ups, 15 or 16 pull-ups. And then 9:30 run, I believe.
Okay. For a mile and a half?
Yeah, for a mile and a half, 9:30.
Okay. So training for that, was that really fucking difficult?
Yeah, so I was training for a while up at Michigan State. I was getting in pretty good shape, except for my swim. I didn't really know how to practice my swim. The swim is combat side stroke, so it was a stroke that I've never used before.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of the swimming, so that was the hardest for me to learn. So then COVID hit, and that kind of just took a toll on me because the gyms were closed and everything. Everything in Michigan was shut down. So I was kind of trying to figure out what do I do now? I can't go to the gym. I don't have a pool I can use. All I can do is run. So I ended up kind of just tailoring my training back. During the summer, I ran my business, and then at the end of August, early September, I'm if I want to be a SEAL, I got to start training full time. It's too hard to run a business, try to train, and everything in Michigan is still closed down. So I actually moved down to North Carolina.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. I thought I saw you post something all right, see in Michigan, I'm fucking locking in on this.
Yep, so that's pretty much what happened. My uncle has a place in North Carolina. It was actually my great-grandma's. When she passed away, she left it to my uncle. But it's just a cabin in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains. And nobody had lived there in a while. So they were actually in the process of doing some remodeling stuff when I contacted him. And I said, hey, I'm looking to start training full-time. It's too hard in Michigan just because everything's locked down. And there's also too many distractions. I'd get done from work and I'd go drink a beer. I'd ride up to the biker bar and grab some food and stuff like that.
You mean here in Michigan?
Yeah, here in Michigan. Yeah. So I needed to kind of get away from distractions, get away from friends, wanting to hang out. So I just needed to be on my own and training. So that's why I went to North Carolina. And that's kind of where everything changed because I was able to start focusing on training full time.
Yep, and that's one part. That's one aspect where I guess I really have to understand. Were you have you always been somebody who's like to hang out with friends and family and social and whatnot?
Yeah, I'm definitely an extrovert, but it's weird. Ever since I started living on my own, I became more introverted. And so I was living in North Carolina. I was training, and then I came home for Thanksgiving, and I was around family and everything, but everybody was talking and going crazy. And I'm I've been living on my own the past 2 months. I'm not used to all this commotion. I just need to go up in my room a little bit.
Really? It just changes that quickly?
Yeah.
A few months can just kind of be
yeah. Well, because I was in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have internet. So I started reading books and things like that. So I was just in complete solitude.
So just a lot of quietness.
Yeah, just a lot of quiet. So coming home was kind of like a culture shock.
You didn't have your phone, so you didn't have like music or news.
Well,
or
so I had my phone, but there's no service in the mountains and there's no Wi-Fi. So I actually got scabs in my ears from listening to music too much with my earbuds, because that's all I could like do was listen to music.
Jesus, dude, that's insane. So, what was it like removing yourself from everything you knew, your friends, your family? Like, how did you? I can't even imagine how making that decision came about. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go fucking move in the cabin to where literally there's nothing there, no one there, and not talk to anybody, to lock down and basically abuse myself physically so I can pass this. How did you fucking do that, and what was that like?
I don't know how I did it. It was definitely, I think it was more difficult for my friends and things like that. Some of them were kind of like shocked. They're like, you have a good business going, you're successful, you just got out of college, like, why would you just leave everything? But for me, I've always kind of been that person that would just like pick up and leave at any time. I'm pretty impulsive, so it basically took me a week from the time that I decided, hey, maybe I should go train full time, to, hey, I'm moving down to North Carolina. So it was definitely like an impulsive decision, but like I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, and it's badass. It's
yeah,
badass.
And it paid like good dividends, because I actually met a trainer down there at the gym, and he taught me how to swim. So I went from swimming like a 10-minute and 30-second 500 yards, and like I was barely finishing the 500 yards because that was far for me, to doing it in under 8 minutes and 30 seconds. So I cut off 2 minutes of time in my swim and working like a month and a half with him. So he really changed me as like a swimmer. He gave me the confidence, and there was like a point 1 month into my training, that was before I met him, I called my dad on the phone after I just finished this run. I was trying to see how fast I could do my 1.5-mile run, and I knew if I wanted to be competitive, I had to do it under 9 minutes, and I finished it in like 9 minutes and 40 seconds. I took my headphones off after the run, like threw them on the ground. I was just like pissed off and disappointed because I was a month into training and things weren't necessarily going how I wanted them to. Like my push-ups, I was only being able to do like 50 or 60 push-ups. I knew I needed to be above 80. Same with like my sit-ups. Pull-ups, I could get like 12. My run was slow. I still didn't know how to swim. And I'm like, Dad, I'm out here all by myself. Like training's not necessarily going how I thought it would. But after I met this trainer, kind of everything changed. And it was a big like confidence boost. Like he kicked my ass. Like there were times where he would like bring the trash can over in the pool so I could like get out of the pool and puke real quick. But my swimming started improving, and then everything else started improving as well.
Jesus. Was this guy like a former SEAL, or is he just like a fitness coach?
So he was in the Army until he got cancer, but he's just this big fitness guy. He swam the Alcatraz swim, so he swam from the island of Alcatraz across the bay.
Like where the jail is?
Yeah, Alcatraz jail. Yeah, California. He wants me to do it with him this year, but the water's like 50-some degrees, and he did it with no wetsuit. And then he was also training to do a 100-mile walk while I was with him. So he's this big fitness buff, and he's like all about mental toughness and stuff. So I said, I want to be a SEAL. I don't know how to swim. I need you to teach me how to swim. I'll do whatever it takes, basically.
And he's like, all right, you're mine now.
Yep, pretty much.
And you still talk to that guy?
Yeah, I still talk to him. Occasionally, not as much as I did before, but he really changed the outlook of things for me.
That's sick. So when you got to the cabin, was it easy right away? Was it really fucking hard? Like, what was that like when you first got there?
So when I first got there, my aunt and uncle were there to check out like the work that people were doing on the house. So I got there, talked with them for like an hour or two, and then they showed me the air mattress that I was going to be sleeping on. So I blew up the air mattress, and then they left. And at night, there's nothing to do there.
So was there like no furniture there or anything?
There was some furniture. There was no bed or anything yet. They ended up buying me a bed like a week later. So they were in the process of like furnishing it. I just got there early, so I didn't have anything at the time. But it was like a big shock as soon as they left, just to be laying on that air mattress at 9 o'clock at night, and it was just pitch black out. You can't see anything. You can't do anything. No TV, no nothing.
So just surrounded by your thoughts.
Yeah, just surrounded by your thoughts.
So are you generally a positive person? Because I can imagine that being very difficult for somebody who's not.
I'm very even keeled. I basically stay at one level consistently. A lot of people are like up and down, like roller coaster emotions, but I'm pretty just easy and steady going.
Oh, have always been that way?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
My dad just says I'm cold.
I was gonna say, some people would say that's emotionless, but
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, from the little I do know about
Yeah.
you, you're laughing, you're smiling.
Yeah.
I don't think you're emotionless.
Yeah. Well, my mom, she says, Ryan, why don't you smile anymore? And I'm like, my trainer says the opposite thing. He's like, why are you always smiling and laughing while we're training? I'm like, you just must see me at the wrong times, Mom. But I guess I just have like a messed up sense of humor. Like the pain, I just laugh through it or joke.
I mean, I think it kind of. I mean, I would imagine it probably takes someone like that to become a SEAL based on some of the shit you're saying. So where are you now in this process then?
So I submitted my application, and I'm waiting to hear back. I think there could be a brief interview process, and then they'll invite me to a SEAL officer's assessment and selection training in California, and that'll be 1 month during the summer. So what I heard is there's about 300 to 400 applicants for the SEAL officer position, and they're probably going to take about 20 to 30.
Okay, so it's really
So yeah, they have 10%, and you're competing with guys in the military academies, like the Navy Military Academy, as well as ROTC people, and then just college students. Some of them who are like D1 athletes and things like that.
because the Navy has a college, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so is this? Do they look at criteria more so centered around physical ability or like mental toughness or like technical skills?
They want to see well-rounded people, and the big thing that they look for is leadership, because you as an officer are going to be 24, 25 years old, but you're going to be the boss of people who have been doing this for 10, 15 years. So why should a SEAL who's been on 3 tours be listening to this kid who just came out of college?
Mm-hmm.
So they want people who have good leadership abilities and are able to adapt and have experience. And that's kind of one of the areas that I thought I might have a hard time on my application process. If I'm competing with a Division I athlete who is the captain of the football team in college, like, how does my leadership experience compare to his? And I realized, like, running a business gave me a lot of tools that not many other people have.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, sometimes it's not the most experience. It's just how they present themselves and the characteristics they have. What was I gonna say? You were saying something that was really interesting. Oh, so just my understanding of, like, when I think Navy, like when I think SEALs, I think like SEAL Team 6, like small special op type people who kind of go in and do certain tasks. What you're describing it as kind of sounds like you'd be leading like a larger team.
There's, I don't know how many SEAL teams there are. There's SEAL Team 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and then there's like 17 and 18. So there's kind of like missing numbers there. But there's about 3,000 SEALs at a time, and then the SEAL teams, each team probably has a couple hundred, which are broken into different groups and things like that. So when you go on missions, you're going with small teams of like 8 to 20 guys, but then you can also have like more if needed. So there is small special operations guys, but the community itself is probably around 3,000 people.
Okay, so SEAL Team 6 is just like popular because they were the ones who got it.
So they're considered a Tier 1 group. So Tier 1 would be like the first line of people. So SEAL Team 6, which is known as Dev Group, and then Delta Force in the Army. Those are the 2 Tier 1 operators, and then the Tier 2 operators would be just like regular SEALs or Green Berets, which are like special operations and special forces. And then you'd have like your Tier 3, which are just like the Army or the rest of the Navy or the Marines.
Okay. So you're saying the program you are doing is to become a SEAL officer, right?
SEAL officer, yes.
So maybe not SEAL Team 6, but these other SEAL teams, that means you'd be the lead of that team?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be the lead right away. I'd go in and I'd be the lead of a small section, and then you kind of work your way up to be the lead of a bigger section, and then eventually you're the lead of the whole team.
Okay.
Just depending on how long you're in there.
And is there any way to, like, So I know you don't start off as the lead, but is there any way to get into the SEALs as not an officer?
Yeah, so being enlisted, you'd be a SEAL, and typically they say the teams are really run by the senior enlisted guys because they just have the most experience out of everybody. So everybody kind of listens to their calls, but most of the people in the SEALs are just enlisted people.
Okay.
So, and that's why it makes it so difficult to become an officer, because for every officer, they basically are in charge of like 10 enlisted guys. So if you have, in one BUDS class, if you have 200 regular enlisted people going in, you only want to have like 10 officers out of that group.
That makes sense.
So like the officer population is probably 10% of the total SEAL population.
Which is why it'd probably be even more difficult to become one.
Yeah, so it's super competitive.
Okay, so now I'm just curious, it sounds like you've done a lot of training, and to get to the point where you're at now, and it sounds like you still have a decent amount of ways to go, right? I'm curious, what has been the hardest part, in your opinion?
I don't think there's like one thing that's like super hard, but it's just like staying consistent and staying disciplined. And it was basically a whole lifestyle change, going from a college partier to somebody who doesn't drink anymore, who doesn't use nicotine anymore, who doesn't eat ice cream anymore, and just eating healthy and things like that. So just staying disciplined was definitely the hardest part of it all. And everybody thinks like, oh, to be a SEAL, you have to be the biggest, the fastest, the strongest. And you don't. You just have to be the person that never quits and is always disciplined enough to just keep going no matter how bad it sucks.
That's fucking badass. So, I dig that. That's sweet, dude. So, man, do you have like any, like, I mean, already what you told me, the stories you have said have been interesting, but do you have like any like stories that stand out above the rest of what you've experienced, whether it be about people or the things you've done up to this point in training, or like, if you had like any like classes or anything like that, like anything that stuck out above the rest?
Not anything specific. Maybe just that story I told you at the beginning about how the team leader, who was like super good and everybody thought was going to make it, he didn't make it. And one of the big things that they talk about in training is they don't know who's going to make it. Like, they see these big, strong people, but the common saying is that the people who start training look more like SEALs than the people who finish training, because it's not the big, jacked people that make it through. It's just the small guy that nobody expected to make it. He's the one that makes it because he just refused to quit.
So it's mental toughness, really.
Yeah, it's all mental toughness.
Is there any tests? I mean, the physical tests are already going to be testing you physically and mental.
Yeah.
But is there any, like, so I don't know if this was SEALs or Marines, but I remember one of the shows I was watching, and tell me if this is anywhere near like reality. They had like a night where they basically ran out in the water and it was fucking freezing. They just had to like lay on the beach or something, and just let the water just.
You know, that's the SEAL BUDS training.
So that you've done that?
I have
not.
To do that. I have to do that.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am, and I think like one of the problems that people have with it is they make it so good to quit. Like, if you quit, you get to go sleep in a nice hotel and get a nice warm coffee and things like that. So, and a lot of people like look forward to the end of it, but my mentality is kind of, it's just another day in the life. So that's kind of my thought going into it. It's just another day, and don't get too high or too low. I think that's the problem that a lot of people make, is like they go in, they're kind of like, if it sucks, I'll quit. But if you go in and if you never had the option to quit in the first place, I don't think as many people would quit, because that's the whole program isn't about like being the best. It's about like just not quitting. Mm-hmm. And they don't really fail people. They just let people quit.
So the program almost incentivizes dropping out. Like they'll give you the fucking nice hotel and the food and whatnot.
Yeah, because they
weeds out the weak ones.
Yeah, they only want the people who are willing to stay.
Jesus, does it ever get better? Like once you like, I mean, I know you can't necessarily speak to it since you're not a SEAL yet, but I'm sure you've made contact with SEALs, right?
Yeah.
do they ever start getting treated better, or is it always like you're in the shit forever?
Well, it's funny because like people will say that the SEALs never talk about buds because it's not as hard as it is to actually be in war. Like if you ever listen to Jocko Willink, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He has a podcast as well, and he's like, yeah, buds sucks, but it doesn't compare at all to war.
Okay, so you accept the fact that you're at the very start of your journey, and there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, and I think that's another problem that people have too is like they might not enjoy the physical training, like the training that I'm at now. It seems like some people don't look forward to coming to training. I love going to training, but I realize it's a part of the lifestyle. Like if you don't like training and working out like that, then this isn't the program for you because you're going to be doing this stuff the whole time that you're in, and it doesn't really get easier.
Yeah, and you were saying you've done some jiu-jitsu and martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Is any of their tests centered around fighting, or is that something that if you didn't have any experience, they teach you when you got there?
Yeah, they teach you when you get there.
But it's
just something that I'm just doing on my own. Okay. I was actually looking for like more cardio work to do because I started getting shin splints from running, and I'm actually starting to deal with some injuries now. That's why I'm home.
What kind of injuries?
So I have a hip injury right now. It was just an overuse injury. I started doing a lot of sand running and ocean swimming, and that just took a toll on my hip flexor.
Swimming does that too?
Yeah, swimming has been like the most difficult on it. So I took a break from like running and swimming, and then I just started swimming upper body freestyle because I couldn't kick anymore. And I actually got a shoulder injury because of it. An overuse injury in my shoulder. So now I have to go to physical therapy for both my hip and my shoulder.
And you've been keeping a good diet, right?
Yeah.
And it's just overuse?
Yeah, just overuse.
It's insane, dude.
So,
a little bit change of direction, but still related. I'm interested to know, have you started your jiu-jitsu and martial arts?
Yeah, I started it down in Florida, and that was just as an additional cardio because I was starting to get shin splints. Mm-hmm. So I was looking for like another cardio to do, and I heard people talking about jiu-jitsu and how much you could learn in jiu-jitsu. So I started training jiu-jitsu, and I love it. It's fun. You learn a lot, and it's very like it's a good like mental thing because you learn how to lose and like hold your dignity, but you also learn how to like beat people. It's I don't know how to explain it, but it's just a very good like culture there, and everybody respects everybody. Like you come in, and at the end of practice, everybody shakes each other's hands. Like it could be the guy that you were fighting with the whole practice, but at the end you're gonna shake his hand because there's no bad blood there. Like you might get beat up, or you might beat somebody up, but you're just training together, so you respect each other.
Yeah, because that's one thing I'm just curious about. Just because, so I'm the type I like to stay fit and as much as I can. Definitely nowhere near the training that you've done, but I go to the gym and I just lift weights. So there's not much purpose behind it. I dabble in sports, just like fucking fun leagues, but that gets boring as well. So I've like thought about doing boxing or MMA just because I think it'd be cool to know how to fight, and also it'd be a good workout.
Yeah.
So right away, do they just like, I guess, walk me through your beginner in jiu-jitsu, your beginner in martial arts. What does that look like?
You get your butt kicked.
Okay.
So we roll every day when we go in. So the first day I was there, you're rolling against people with experience.
Rolling as in like ground? Like
yeah, it's jiu-jitsu is all grappling.
Okay.
So there's no punching, there's no kicking. You're just it's basically like wrestling, except instead of pinning, you're trying to submit people. So you're doing like arm bars, chokeholds, things like that. So the first day you go there, you start as a white belt, and unlike other martial arts where you kind of move up the belt quickly, you typically stay a white belt for 2 years. So you're at the lowest level for a long time because they want to make sure that you're gonna stick with the program. And when you get promoted, it's actually like a really big deal because there's not very many promotions.
And they don't pair you like when you spar or when you roll. You're not paired with other beginners.
You are. So all the white belts are together typically. So you'd be with people with less than 2 years of experience. But some of those people, even with a month of training more than you, they already know a lot more than a beginner.
Yeah.
And then you're not with the same person every time. So typically we will go in there. They'll show us like a move or a technique. We'll practice that technique a few times, and then we'll go to another mover technique. We'll practice that. That's like typically the first 45 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes, we just roll around with each other. So you'll do like a one-on-one for like 5 minutes, and then you'll go find another partner and do a one-on-one with them. And that's like typically the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Jesus. And that's different than martial arts, because martial arts is hitting, right? Sparring, or no?
Well, Jujitsu is a martial art.
Okay.
But I also do kickboxing as well. So we do sparring in that too.
And again, I'm full with dumb questions, but is kickboxing, do they only use kicking, or is it boxing but you're allowed to kick?
Boxing, but you're allowed to kick.
Okay. So you do martial arts, which is like groundwork, like almost like wrestling, but different. And then you do boxing, which is more stand-up fight style.
Correct.
And what does that class look like when you're a beginner?
More
getting your ass kicked?
Yeah, more getting your butt kicked. Because we spar pretty often, which like I'm kind of nervous about because training for the SEALs and everything, the last thing I can afford to do is get injured.
Yeah.
So I kind of like try to avoid sparring when I can. Not because I'm like a pussy that doesn't want to get hit, but like if I get knocked out or something, or I like blow a shoulder out, like I'm done with the SEALs. So I try to take it kind of cautiously. I try to do like more bag work and things like that. But typically we'll go in there, we'll do some shadow boxing, which is basically like you're just boxing the air, pretending like you have an opponent. And then we'll go over a couple moves. We'll go over like throwing a jab or throwing a straight, uppercuts, hooks, things like that. And sometimes we'll use like the mitts. Sometimes we'll actually just like hit our partner. And then there's also like bag work too that we can do.
Okay. Jesus, dude. So you're always fucking moving then,
Yeah.
between training, martial art, or jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing.
Yeah. But it's fun because I don't really know anybody down in Florida because I just moved there recently. But the way to get to know people is like going out. And since I don't drink, I don't go out to a bar and meet people. So now my friends are people that I train with for the SEAL program or people that I meet doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing.
Yeah, but that's probably good because I've said this on previous episodes, what's been talked about. You kind of become what you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of partiers, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get away from the party scene.
Yeah.
If you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of people who are fucking go-getters in terms of being healthy and accomplishing their goals, I think that would probably rub off on you, right?
Yeah. And it's something to do also. Like when I was injured down in Florida for like the last week I was there, like I didn't know what to do because all I do is train. So then I just get bored and I end up sitting on my phone the whole day because like I have nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have more reception in Florida than you did probably in the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can still go on social sometimes.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. That's insane. I'd imagine since you've done all this, I know you said you're pretty level set all the time, not an emotional roller coaster, but I always like to ask guests of a mental health tip. I'm not sure if you know that, but I'd be curious to hear if you have one, and if so, what it is.
So I kind of have two. So one big thing that I, like, when I was more emotional, the thing I realized was my issue was I felt bad for myself. So that's kind of like the thing I do now is like, I'll never feel bad for myself, like ever. Because it's just like, you start feeling bad for yourself and you start feeling bad for yourself for something else. And then it just kind of like, your mood just declines because you're always like, I'm the victim. So when you don't feel bad for yourself, you start looking at like the problem. You take more of a direct approach to the problem as opposed to like feeling sorry that it happened to you. So I always try to go and attack the problem as opposed to like feeling bad that it happened in the first place.
Okay, and your second one?
My second one is attitude and self-talk. I do a lot of like self-talk to myself to kind of like pump myself up for something, or if I'm training and it's like getting really difficult, I just like say something that'll like motivate me and keep me going. So my big thing is just if I'm like in the woods or swimming, like initially when I was in the woods, I'm like, oh, there could be bears, there could be snakes, or when I was swimming in the ocean, I'm like, there could be sharks. So my big thing was saying, I'm the baddest motherfucker in here, like nothing's gonna mess with me.
I dare Grizzly to fucking walk up on me.
Yeah, so it was just kind of like doing self-talk to get myself through like difficult situations. And it really helps change like your mood and your attitude, because if you're scared all the time, like it's a conscious decision to be the hammer or the nail, if you walk around saying I'm the hammer, I'm the hammer, I'm the hammer, then your attitude changes.
Yeah. So I do have one question on your first one. Just because I know how fucking difficult it would be to not, I don't want to say play the victim, but essentially if you're feeling bad for yourself, you're kind of doing that. If you've ever done that before, how do you stop yourself from doing that? I'm just curious what you'd say.
I realized when something would happen to me, like my go-to would just be like sit in my room and feel bad for myself. But now, I don't know if there's like one thing that I do specifically. I just like to focus on the problem and try to handle it and not like pull myself away or go into my room and feel bad for myself.
Okay, so you look at the problem and you try to fucking just face it head on?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I'm a very logical thinker, and I'm not too much of an emotional thinker. So when something happens, I try to look at it logically and try to solve the problem as opposed to reacting.
I think that's a good characteristic to have, but it's also, I think, a rare characteristic to have. I think a lot of people, including myself, are emotional. I try to be fucking logical, but it's hard. It's very difficult to counteract that.
And I think one of the downsides with it, though, is it's harder to empathize with people sometimes because I'm this person who's very logical and I'm not so emotional. When people are explaining their problems and stuff to me, I don't necessarily feel bad for themselves. I'm always trying to solve their problems. And I realize like one of my biggest weaknesses is listening to people because when people are talking to me, I always try to like think of a solution to their problem that they're having. And then they're just like, just listen to what I have to say, like, feel bad for me. And I'm not like the person that typically feels bad. So it's caused some issues because I'm always trying to solve people's problems instead of like just listening to them.
Yeah, but even being conscious that you do that, I think it's a big, that's the thing, is I'm emotional, but I also, like if you're emotional, I'll try to be logical for you.
Yeah.
So I'm in the same boat where it's like, all right, tell me your problem, all right, we're going to fix it. Yeah. It's like, dude, fuck off. I don't want it to be fixed. I just want to vent. So that's one of I have lots of things I can work on, and that's one of them as well. So it's interesting you said that. But anyway, Ryan, thank you for coming out, dude. You're sounding like one badass motherfucker, so hit this guy up. Well, actually, he might not get your messages because he'll probably be fucking fighting a bear or something. But thanks for coming out, dude. It was great sitting down with you. For anybody who's listening that'd like to come on, be a guest, send me a message at TIMBIT podcast on Instagram, or if you're no one's ever sent me an email, so I'm just gonna stop talking about the email. Send me a text, whatever. You know where to find me. Until next week, see you guys.